Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your trusted daily companion for decoding current affairs the smart UPSC way. It's June 22nd, 2025, and today's edition explores two thought-provoking themes for upcoming mains 2025. Firstly, we reflect on International Yoga Day 2025 and how it strengthens India's soft power and global cultural outreach. Second, we address a very critical question: why isn't India a magnet for global science? And we will be taking an honest look at research infrastructure and talent in the country. Thirdly, our simplified section, designed for upcoming prelims 2026, covers digital copyright concerns, forest rights, internal security, global fintech laws like the Genius Act, digital health platforms like the e-Rakt Kosh, and the recent updates on US strategic bombers in Iran. So let's begin. Hello guys, welcome back again. I hope you all are doing well. I hope your preparation is going fine. Now, before I start, I want to announce a very important initiative that is about the answer writing practice, especially before the mains 2025. So, in the analysts articles, as you know, we have a practice question each. So you can attempt to have your answer briefly in the mentioned comments, and so that we can actually look into and we can try to also give you some feedback if you are in the right direction regarding answer writing. So do not forget to mention the same in the comments. Now let us start with the very first article, which is on the International Day of Yoga, and which was celebrated yesterday in India and also the rest of the world, as you can actually understand from the newspaper headlines. From China to the UN to the US to London, the International Yoga Day has been celebrated across the entire world. We have to start with the context that the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, has actually described yoga as an shining example of India's soft power. And she has also said that it is a shared legacy of the entire humankind. And this is why this makes this topic extremely important from the perspective of GS2, where we need to look into the politics and the policies of the developed countries and the developing countries on India's interests, and also how India over a period of time has mobilized its diaspora. So let us understand firstly about the International Day of Yoga, where it is actually celebrated every year on 21st June. Ever since our Prime Minister Narendra Modi came into power since 2014, he mainly had so many broad international objectives. Firstly, he wanted to improve the neighborhood relations, due to which we also have the extended neighborhood into the Indian Ocean, and also via the Act East policy. Next, we also have participated in so many international forums, starting from calling for reforms in the UN, in the WTO, in so many other international organizations. Also, India has started so many international initiatives, funds, for example, so the International Solar Alliance. Also, you can mention some more in the comments too, according to which of the international initiatives and funds were started by India alone. Also, over a period of time, we have seen how the Prime Minister's vision, and also recently under the External Affairs Minister's vision, we have tried to pioneer India into a global force. And yoga is one of them, where we have the present theme, 2025 theme, as Yoga for One Earth, One Health, and increasingly in recent times, especially in the prelims examination, the UPSC is asking us about the major themes of some international events, of some international organizations and their summits. So you have to keep this in mind also. And mainly it was adopted also by the UN in 2014. Since then, it is actually a marker of mental, physical and spiritual harmony globally. When we talk about globally, I mean that the yoga industry right now on a global scale is a $300 billion industry, where mainly we have to understand, be it from say mainly the Western countries, be it China, everyone is interested in spreading the message of yoga. And mainly India has been using yoga to promote physical, mental, spiritual wellness. Apart from that, the 21st of June every year is seen by us and mainly the political experts as a diplomatic tool that India has deployed carefully over a period of time. And mainly we have to also understand it is recognized by major organizations from UN to even the WHO when we talk about the contributions and the benefits that the yoga has for the human body. Now, when we talk about the global presence of the International Yoga Day, starting from the United Nations headquarters, where noted physician Dr. Deepak Chopra has actually participated in a guided meditation session. Apart from it has also seen participation of more than 1200 people. Also at the New York Times Square, we have seen how 10,000 plus practitioners have gathered for the day. Also at the London Strand, which is a prominent tourist destination, we also have the message from the UK King Charles, and also they have converted it into a fusion dance finale also. And also when we talk about India's own participation, our Prime Minister gathered at Visakhapatnam, where he actually participated in the Yoga Day practice. And apart from this, we have so many other examples across the entire world. Now, this brings me to the main topic today, which is actually how India has been increasing its soft power over a period of time. So for beginners, for everyone, let me just start with the very basics as to why this Yoga Day is a master stroke of soft power. But before that, what is soft power? We have to understand via a very easy definition which was coined by Joseph Nye. So he said that soft power is the ability to shape global opinions through attraction, culture and diplomacy. These three things, and not through force. So this is where we have to understand not only India, the various other countries also have some of their own inherent attraction, culture and diplomacy. So it can have various fields such as culture, spiritual aspects, educational platforms, democracy, diplomacy, diaspora, humanitarian aid, technology, media and the civilizational ethos. We will be discussing more in details in the next slide when I will be talking about India's own soft power. But here we have to distinguish between hard power and soft power. We all know the main aspects of power for a country. Mainly, since ancient times, the major civilizations, the major dynasties, and also ever since the rise of the nation states, we also have seen how those nation states, particularly the Western powers, mainly the US, have relied on hard power over a period of time. Hard power generally spans military prowess, economic sanctions, and coercion. We are also seeing this particular coercion. For example, we are demanding, the Western countries are demanding the regime change in Iran. So this is also a, use of force to exert one's own power internationally. So apart from this, we also have to understand some countries need to cultivate their attraction, culture and diplomacy. This is mainly done by India when it comes to the Bollywood or yoga, when India is trying to spread its culture. Also, when we talk about the values, we are proud in our democratic values. Also, the values emphasized by the father of the country, Mahatma Gandhi. And finally, at the end of the day, India also participates in so many international forums, starting from the UN to BRICS, mainly powering the narratives for the global South countries. So this is how India is also trying to have the same. So where we have to understand that every country needs to have a very delicate balance between soft power and hard power. It is obviously understandable that mainly in the present world, in the real world, actually it is a hard power which is more dominant and more seen. But when we talk about the countries going about their own ways and the countries seeking to have their own actions, so that can also be pioneered via using soft power too. In recent times, we also have a new term known as smart power. This is actually a combination, a very delicate combination of soft and hard power. For example, the US uses its Hollywood industry and also uses its force and its political credibility via the NATO. Especially we have seen this, how this is panning out between Russia and Ukraine crisis too. China is also not alone. China has their own cultural centers known as the Confucius centers or Confucius institutions, such as the British the UK have the British Council. So via these cultural institutes, they try to spread their Chinese culture across the entire world. Starting from the Chinese New Year to the various festivals conducted in China, they also try to celebrate it across the entire world. And India also does the same via the celebration of Diwali, the International Yoga Day, even Gandhi Jayanti internationally. Now, China does the same with these institutes and also its Belt and Road Initiative, and also the debt that China offers to African nations and various other global south countries, because they want to trap them with loans with big debt, and later they want to gain some concessions. So these are actually the constituents of hard power and also soft power. Now, we have to talk about India's keys via the recent International Yoga Day. Now, why this is a master stroke? Firstly, we have to understand that India is exerting its cultural influence over a period of time, and this is mainly why India have to understand that the cultural gap, or say the various gap between the Western countries and the Eastern countries, increased during colonialism or imperialism. And over a period of time, our own ancient knowledge, our own tradition has to be disseminated to the rest of the world. Next, when we talk about the health diplomacy, International Yoga Day is promoting yoga, which you know is extremely beneficial for your mental health, physical health. And let me know in the comments who among all of you does yoga every day. I would totally encourage you to do yoga for at least 30 minutes per day, which will also boost your mental capabilities to study more and to revise effectively and do best in the examination. And we have to also understand that yoga is actually a very big alternative to the pharma industry. We know that recently we have so many lifestyle diseases over a period of time, and the only one industry which is profiting from our sedentary lifestyle are the big pharmaceutical companies, mainly from the Western countries, where we know that their market share is around $2 trillion, right? So from our own lifestyle choices, they are profiting. So let us actually try to have a better lifestyle. Let us do yoga. And India is actually trying to spread this message to the entire world. And we have to also understand that many Westerners have also developed interest in this, because with reference to their various lifestyle diseases and so on, they have actually benefited from yoga. There are proper research reports internationally, you can also look for them, where yoga has been clinically been reported as being an alternative medicine. Apart from this, India has also talked about using Ayurveda and various other aspects over a period of time to have an alternative to the big pharma industry. Now, thirdly, this is also trying to mobilize our diaspora, because NRIs in prominent countries, right, they actually try to lead the events in their cities, in their towns, internationally. This tries to build India's global networks. And at the end of the day, we are also trying to countering China, maybe, because you also have heard about Tai Chi, which is China's own version of mindfulness. Now let me talk about the main examples of India's soft power across various domains. Starting from culture, we have yoga, Ayurveda, Bollywood, and Indian cuisine abroad. Can you tell me in the comments which is the national dish of the UK? I guess it is actually a popular dish which has been elected by the UK people themselves, but you let me know in the comments. Next, when we talk about diaspora and history, we have 35 plus million Indian diaspora, people of Indian origin abroad. And mainly, they have held on to their culture, their Indianness, about their religion, about their festivities and everything. Whatever is been conducted in India, we can almost see the same things in many prominent Western countries, and even some of the African nations too, increasingly nowadays. Starting from Diwali to Holi to even Gandhi Jayanti, we are seeing all these kind of things being conducted by the diaspora abroad. Next, when we talk about democracy, India is the world's largest democracy without any doubt. And we have to talk about where these roots of the democratical ideals are coming from. And here we have to talk about the Gandhian non-violence adherence, and also we have to understand how he has inspired Nelson Mandela and also Martin Luther King Jr. Next, we also have to talk about India's strides in technology and development, starting from vaccine mastery, of offering the COVID vaccines to mainly the developing countries, mainly in our extended neighborhood and also in the Indian Ocean region countries. Starting from UPI, where Indian UPI systems are being used in France, UAE and various other countries. You also let me know in the comment. This was actually asked in UPSC 2025 prelims examination. We also have the systems and the technology of Aadhaar, digital public infrastructure, digital governance and so many other aspects abroad. Next, when we come to education, we know that the neighboring countries are mainly focused on the Indian colleges and institutions. if you are in the DU or if you are in various other central universities in the country, you definitely must have some international friend of yours, right? Also via the various India, information technology, economic cooperation, and the scholarships, the IITs, IIMs actually attract various students within the country also. We also have various humanitarian aid. Recently, we are also seeing the same via Operation Sindhu, which is actually the evacuation exercise which has been done by the country. And now we have also seen how we are not only evacuating Indians from Israel and Iran, we are also trying to evacuate the Sri Lankans, the Bhutanese people, and the Nepalese citizens who are stuck there too. Correct? Apart from that, we have also tried to assist Sri Lanka when it faced a major balance of payment crisis in 2021-22, shortly after the COVID pandemic. Also, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the CDRI, is a very innovative initiative in itself to help the various island countries which have strong negative impacts of climate change. And at the end of the day, we have also seen how we have increasingly participated at various multilateral forums, starting from the UN, the G20, which we actually held in the country in 2023. We have also tried to expand the BRICS, the participate in the non-aligned movement, the WHO, and mainly we have tried to transform our voice into the collective voice of the global South countries, right, where we are trying to aspire to become a Vishwa Guru, the global leader of the global South. But over a period of time, we have also seen that despite these initiatives, we also have some challenges. Firstly, we have some institutional gaps. The Chinese have the Confucius Institutes. The British have the British Council to spread their cultural ideas over a period of time to all of the countries. We have to also admire how Confucius Institutes have expanded and in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, Africa, and Oceania. But are we doing the same via our own Indian Cultural Institute, the ICCR? It is not done at that pace. And that is why we have a fragmented coordination also between ministries, such as the External Affairs Ministry, the Ayush Ministry, and also the Tourism Ministry, where we can actually try to collaborate and benefit from the same. Next, we also have limited multilateral diplomacy over a period of time. Be it the UNESCO, be it at the BRICS or the G20, we are not able to present our own cultural ideas or exert the soft power aspects effectively, which is why we need to have more cultural programs when these summits are held from an Indian perspective. Next, this diagram is extremely important for your examination. In any answers, you can actually talk about the various kinds of diplomacies adopted by various countries. Starting from track 1, which is actually the government side of diplomacy. Apart from that, we have so many other kinds of diplomacy also, between various professionals who can have conflict resolutions, businesses, private citizens, research, peace activism, religion, and funding. So this is actually taking outside the help of any government. So India is actually weaker with reference to other countries in track 2 and track 3 diplomacy. When it comes to funding, we are not having a proper soft budget funding. Now countries like US and China do definitely have the same. Next, when we talk about a formal research and study into our, say, institutes, we do not have the same abroad, where British Council have proper spoken English courses and so many other aspects. Confucius Institutes actually help you to learn the philosophy of Confucius and also try to practice, mindfulness. These are the things that we are lacking. We are not having a proper benchmarking with reference to other countries. Next, we are also not utilizing our diaspora, that is a 35 million strong in the entire world. We are not trying to utilize them properly, correct? And that is why we also need to understand their potential. And at the end of the day, when we talk about the multilateral diplomacy, the Indian media is not prominently present at the global stage. We do not have a proper channel, such as the British has the BCC, the Chinese have their own state media, which are prominent internationally. We do not have the same. So that is why we need to have more media outreach so that the multilateral diplomacy can actually function on an effective level. So this is why we have to adopt a strategic way forward. We need to increase our global appeal through these 4 pillars. Now, firstly, we have to have a proper soft power blueprint policy, which is where we have to talk about how we can engage with the track 2 and Track 3 diplomacy, and we need to have a proper strategy by the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Tourism, and all the other aspects when it concerns sports, movies, aspects, and so on. Secondly, we need to restructure key institutions such as the ICCR according to the Vienna Security Committee recommendation. We need to strengthen it, we need to give more funding, more powers. Second, we need to have a cultural diplomacy task force which can have recommendations on how we can actually try to mobilize the Indian cultural aspects. And we need to also have a global media channel. For example, we can actually create the Doordarshan International, which can actually cater to the global audience and showcase India's own interests. Thirdly, we need to leverage global platforms such as the UNESCO, BRICS, so that we can actually showcase our cultural programs during the summits. And at the end of the day, we need to also expand our cultural centers abroad. This can be also be done with the help of the various state governments too, showcasing the state-specific cultures abroad. And at the end of the day, we cannot forget the diaspora and the educational diplomacy aspect. Firstly, we need to empower diaspora. We need to select some few people, some prominent people across the entire world who can actually carry India's voice ahead. We can actually also try to give them various tags and positions in the government. And at the end of the day, we can also try to expand India's information technology and economic cooperation via study in India and various scholarship programs, mainly for the neighboring countries who do not have that, educational status or institutions in their own countries, such as Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, and so on. So we need to have more scholarships, more programs for them to participate in the country. Now, again, I am repeating, you please do attempt the mains practice question. You let me know the answers in the comments so that we can actually try to go through some of them and give a proper amount of feedback. And let me give you some hints as to how you can start the intro of this answer. You can actually start with the ranking of India in the Global Soft Power Index 2025. India is actually at 29th position. So with this, you can start your answer. Now we can move on to the next one. Nobel laureate Venki Ramakrishnan recently made the statement that India is not a magnet for global science. And this actually brings us to a very important topic, that is the research and development infrastructure in the country, which we will be trying to focus in this discussion, which is highly important for your prelims, that is general science, for your GS2 via the topic of human resources, how we need to have the capabilities of our population increased over a period of time. Next, we also need to look at various science and technology developments. And finally, we need to also look at the status of Indians in research, in science and development, and also how we are having indigenization, or what is the status of indigenization of technology in the country. So we have so many topics today because firstly, we need to come to the global context of what is happening in the world right now. As you can see, these are the countries which are scientific powerhouses, or these are the countries who are doing extremely good amount of research and development. It is China, it is the EU, the 27 countries, we have the US, Japan, Britain, South Korea, and China, right, who are actually spending a lot of dollars on research and development. But recently, after the election of Mr. Trump, he has announced various research cuts across various US-based research institutions such as the NIH, which is seeing a cut of around $18 billion from the US government. So this institution will not be getting this kind of fund anymore. The NSF is also getting a fund cut of $5 billion, and one of their most important research institutions, NASA, is also seeing a 25% budget cuts. Apart from these cuts, in the recent news also we have seen how Mr. Trump's administration is upsetting various top US universities such as the Harvard and the various other Ivy League colleges. They are also trying to figure out what is the main intention of this research-based cuts, because it is generally assumed that research and development is actually good for the nation's future economic growth and future economic power in the entire world. And that is why we have various scientists who are fleeing the US. And according to the data in Nature, we are seeing 32% spike in the US researchers applying to Europe and 75% of the US scientists who want to leave the country. But if they're leaving the US, where are they going to? Mainly we have seen in the Europe, but they're not coming to India. Why? Because of various issues which has been rightly identified by Venki Ramakrishnan also. So let us actually try to understand what he is actually talking about. Now, when we talk about the basics of research and development is actually the systematic investigations and experiments to create new technologies, products or processes by various business organizations in the country, or at the universities, or the government or private research institutes. And also, some of the research is also done by the government agencies such as ISRO in our country. So mainly when we talk about research and development, there is a very prominent economic model in development economics known as the Romer model. Now, we have so many models in developmental economics which focus on where the economic growth of a country is actually coming from. Mainly we know that these come from economic activities such as from the primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, from the investments, from the savings of the country. We have so many complicated theories. One of those theories, which is known as a Romer model, they propose that the research and development is actually part of an invisible percentage of our GDP. And we know that the more that we spend on research and development, better technologies will be created. And you know, technologies actually make our production much more effective, and they reduce the costs, they increase the profits. If profits increase, businesses expand more, people get more employment, people get more jobs, and at the end of the day, the GDP of a country increases. So this is the entire thing which has been proposed by the Romer model. You can use the so in your answers also. Now, the Nobel laureate is actually telling that in India, we have only 0.6% of the entire GDP that goes into research and development, and the number in US, Europe or China is to the tune of 2 to 3%. So we can only imagine how much behind we are. Next, he also says that in Indian universities, we have so many grants, we have so many fellowships and scholarships, but these are either unpaid, or these grants are stuck, or this private funding is not there in the country. Next, we also have various labs in the country. The very sophisticated labs we generally see at the private companies in India, and also at premier institutes such as IITs, IIScs, and sometimes even at the NITs too. But what about the various state level organizations? What about the various other think tanks which do not have the proper lab structures? These lag behind the global standards, and also the salaries that India pays to the researchers, both from the government and the private sector, they are extremely low. When we compare the same at the global level, they are at 2 to 3 times higher, because simply the government funding is higher. And also, at the end of the day, he is also talking about a very important issue, that is the living standards in the country. In India, we have issues such as increasing trash, increasing wastes, pollution, unsafe public places, mainly for women researchers. Now, just for these kind of issues, Indian government have recent times tried to take cognizance of the matter. Over a period of time, we have various key initiatives which was not in India over the last, say 30-40 years. But right now, India is trying to change its attitude towards research. Firstly, when we talk about the money that the country is right now spending, the budgetary push in the latest 2025-26 union budget, we can actually track via the various funds or fellowships in the recent times. Firstly, we have a deep technology fund of funds which will be funding the aspects of machine learning, artificial intelligence, cyber security, which are actually thought of as deep technology, which go beyond technology, which are actually specialized technology. Next, we are also spending 20,000 crores on developing private research infrastructure in the country, because in India, mainly we have research coming from the government side. We also have to bring the private institutions, because government alone sometimes cannot do all the things. And at the end of the day, we also have PM research fellowships, which are the kind of fellowships that you will be getting at premier institutions, and also you will be also getting the same at various other institutions notified by the government, where you can also get a stipend amounting to around 80,000 rupees per month. Apart from this, we also have various policy reforms that Indian government has taken for ease of innovation in the country. For example, the non-government e-marketplace procurement for the various government agencies or the research institutes or for the colleges in the country. What happens is actually, for example, if there is a university, right, and it needs various laboratory equipments and various other aspects, so those kind of spending that university can do on these objects are sometimes very limited. So that is why the government has actually tried to actually relax various norms. Firstly, it has told that some of the universities and the various research institutes, also the various government companies, agencies, they can procure outside the government e-marketplace portals, mainly maybe from the startups, so that the startups can actually supply lab equipments and various other specialized equipments to such institutes. Secondly, the direct purchase cap has been increased to 2 crore rupees so that the universities can actually spend more on upgrading their infrastructure. Thirdly, those same institutes have now the flexibility of applying to various global tenders of so many other aspects such as biotechnology, lab research or various incubation centers up to the tune of 200 crore rupees so that they can actually spend more money. And also we have the Anusandhan Research Foundation where we have a corpus of 50,000 crore which can actually try to improve the science and technological research alongside the private research ecosystem in the government aspect. Next, when we talk about the private sector, we have to talk about how various companies in the country are using the corporate social responsibility, the CSR, for driving innovation in startups, in so many other science and tech aspects. Second, we also have ISRO, who has recently started outsourcing the satellites or say the various satellite launches to private organizations such as Agnikul, Skyroot, which are Indian startups which aspire to one day become just like the SpaceX in the US. And we also have companies such as Tata Motors and various companies such as Biocon who are having impressive achievements in this sector. Apart from this, we also have various sector-specific missions. For example, the National Geospatial Mission, who is actually looking at AI-powered urban planning. We have the Bio-Ride scheme, who are actually trying to pioneer the biotech startups. We have the Quantum Supercomputing Mission. We have the Gene Bank for Crops. We have the India AI Mission. In the comments, you let me know 3-4 other missions too, which India is trying to focus on sub-tech sectors because sometimes one size fits all policy do not work, so that we have to actually target AI, machine learning, biotechnology, quantum computing separately, which India is actually doing. They have the funding up to around thousands of crores for these sectoral initiatives. And at the end of the day, the various state governments are also doing excellent in this aspect. Starting from Rajasthan, Karnataka and so on, we have a high amount of money from the state government treasuries which is spent on science and technological development in the country. So that is how we are having this kind of initiatives over a period of time. But to make those researchers who are migrating out from the US come to India, we need to go a long way forward. Firstly, we need to increase the money that we spend in research and development to 2% of GDP by 2030. Next, we need to strengthen our core infrastructure, the laboratories, the various incubation centers, the various other aspects of infrastructure that is needed for research and development. We need to strengthen that. Next, we can actually have more private-public partnership so that this PPP model can actually bring in more investments. Next, we need to also give some breaks, some relaxation, some flexibility in taxes to those private companies who are doing excellent in research and development. Next, we need to also empower and skill the existing researchers. We need to take their skills to the next level using digital technologies such as AI, such as data analytics, and we also have to do proper training to our workforce also. Next, according to the various concerns raised by him, we also have to have timely grants, timely payment of scholarships to the researchers so that they do not feel demotivated because they are spending their entire lives on these research and development which can be later be of help for India. So let us care from them right now. And we have to also improve our living standards. We have to have more clean air in mainly urban areas such as Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad and so many other centers in the entire country. We need to have proper sidewalks, walkable sidewalks, and we have to also have safe transit and clean transit in the urban areas too so that the researchers have a proper quality of life. And then at the end of the day, we need to push more elite institutes. We can not only be dependent on IIT Delhi, on IIM Bangalore and such big institutions. We need to have more IITs, more IIMs, more NITs. We need to have more, prominent colleges across the country, more universities across the country, and have more funding so that education, research, innovation is decentralized at the grassroots level. So this was all that I wanted to convey in this topic. You have 2 PYQs from prelims. You let me know definitely in the comments. And again, we have a mains practice question. You let me know the answer in the comments so that we can actually give you some feedback. Again, a small hint of what you can actually use in your intro is some of the various sectoral funds that the government of India is spending on research institutions. Now on to the simplified articles. Guys, in this article we have the Digital News Publishers Association raising some concerns about the use of AI in the news circulation in the country. So this is a very important topic when we talk about the main issues of AI in recent times in our modern societies, from the perspective of general science and also from the perspective of GS3, where we have to also understand the implications of intellectual property rights. Now guys, before I begin, let me just brief you on what happens in the real world when we talk about the use of AI in news. For example, you want to have some updates on the Iran and Israel issue that is going on right now. So you go on to ChatGPT, you go on to Bard, you go on to Perplexity or whatever AI platform you use. You just ask for a news summary on Israel and Iran and the US issue which is going on right now. So the AI will be giving you a list of summaries and also it will be giving you links from the various websites it has generated information from. Now you as a user is easily able to read the news on a single page. Sometimes maybe that particular AI is using the news from a paid website, paid news website. So what about that payment that website is not getting because you are reading that information in your AI portal? So this is actually creating a loss of revenues for those news channels, for those media channels. This is exactly what is happening right now. That is why the Digital News Publishers Association, which is an association where we have the Hindu, the Indian Express, the other news channels, they have actually created an association as a form of an interest group to actually protest against this particular AI issue which is going on, because it is a kind of a copyright concern, because despite the various journalists who are writing the articles, they are getting paid for the same. Right? Also, some websites have premium memberships. We are going beyond the premium memberships and we are trying to read the same via an AI portal, which is actually a kind of a copyright infringement. And that is why they are demanding a fair compensation for the same. The news channels, the news media is not telling that AI should not be using our content. They should completely use the content, but AI companies, AI websites must be paying the news channel in return as a kind of a compensation for the same via chatbots, search assistants or AI generated summaries that the AI companies are using. And this is a very important issue because this matters at the international level. When we talk about the same across the entire world, we have the US from the New York Times, who actually brought OpenAI to the court for $1 billion. Next, in the EU has an AI Act that forces transparency on the training data that is used by the various AI companies, mainly from the news perspective. And in Australia also, Google and Facebook is actually kind of paying $200 million per year to the media. So these are actually the global examples that we're seeing. So that is why we have these AI companies compensating in other countries. So why not in India? So that is why these demands are very much prominent. Firstly, they are demanding a compulsory licensing, that AI firms must be negotiating the fees that the news media must be receiving if they are using their content. Next, the news media companies, they also should be having an opt-out option so that the AI should not be training on their own website's data. Just like the EU has this particular legislation on the same. Next, we also need to have a model where the AI companies, they are generating revenue via subscription, via advertisements and so on. So that is why this kind of revenues must also be shared with the news companies, right? Because the AI generated news summaries are using their data. So that is why they must be compensated. So this actually presents us some of the potential scenarios of what can happen. For example, in the scenario where the government right now, guided by the DPIIT, is actually looking at a potential legislation to curb these incidents. So that is why a government-backed legislation is actually possible, and mainly by July 2025 we can actually get more clarity on what the government is thinking on this. So the main model is that the AI firms can pay and the media can actually survive because they are getting the compensation. Next, if the government does not have any regulation, it is mainly the news media which will be suffering, and at the end you and I also will be suffering because we will be not getting any quality news because the news media channels are not encouraged to deliver proper quality news. And at the end of the day, if we have a compromise deal that we have some AI companies collaborating with the news media companies, here also there is one issue that maybe the powerful media companies, the big media companies will be benefiting because they can have better deals. The small media companies, they will be perishing. And that media in any democracy is the fourth pillar. So that is why we need to have a proper legislation on the same. So let us see what the government is doing. Till then, we can actually move on to the next one. Guys, here we have the article related to Forest Rights Act and internal security. Now we have both the topics from GS2 and GS3, where from GS2 we have various welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections of the population by the center and the state government, where we have the topic of Forest Rights Act. Next, we are also seeing that in this article how the implementation of FRA in Chhattisgarh has actually led to the decrease of Naxalism in the region. So this is an excellent case study for your mains examination, because this kind of issues, if you can cite in your answers, you will get excellent marks. Now let us start with the very basics, mainly for the beginners. You know that the forest dwellers, including the tribal population in the country, have historically suffered discrimination, mainly at the hand of the colonialists, the British. They've actually uprooted them from their lands, they cleared the forest for railway tracks, and they have imposed so many harsh atrocities on them. But after independence, things have changed, and in 2006, after a prolonged demand from civil society organizations, from tribal right activists, the government brought in a very important legislation, a very pioneering legislation to give land rights to the tribal populations and the forest dwellers in the country. In this Forest Rights Act, the government mainly via the Gram Sabha is empowered to give land titles to two classes of population. Firstly, we have the scheduled tribes who have to be residing and dependent on the forest resources before 13 December 2005. And the other section are the other traditional forest dwellers who also must be residing and also must be dependent at least for the last 75 years on forests for their life and livelihood. And this must be prior to 2005 again. Because this kind of peoples, they will be getting land titles. They will be getting protection from illegal eviction. If they are being evicted, they must be given proper compensation according to various fixed rates. The titles, the deeds that they will be getting, that particular deed, that particular property rights can also be transferable to their later heirs. Next, also when we talk about the sustainability, that is also a kind of a concern here, because mainly if you are trying to give the tribals, the forest dwellers, their land, their own land, they will be trying to protect it. And in India, we have so many instances where the tribal population revere the forests as their local guardians, as their local deities and their gods, also known as the sacred groves. Now, this is actually a kind of a sustainability focus, and at the end of the day, these title rights are sometimes jointly given in the name of the male and the female landowner. So this is also bringing in gender sensitivity too. Now, when we talk about what kind of rights are actually recognized under the FRA, we have three kinds of things that we have to keep in mind. Firstly, we have the individual forest rights, where you have the right to hold land and live in the forest for residence or self-cultivation up to 4 hectares for family, and that must be before 13 December 2005. If you are claiming right now, you will not be getting the same if you do not fulfill these criteria. Now, these are factual information, you have to keep this in mind for your examination. Next, we have the community rights also. For example, a particular community, and not individual right now, an entire community in a local area, they will be getting collectively the access to use the minus forest produce. Minus forest produce are, for example, bamboo products, honey, fruits, various amounts of oils, flowers, even ginger, cardamom, and in various other instances. We have so many other MFPs where even sometimes the state governments of Odisha and various other state governments have announced MSP to procure them, to give proper livelihood opportunities to them. Apart from this, the community people also will be getting the rights of grazing, collection of woodwork, fishing, access to water bodies within the forests, so that their traditional lifestyle is not, disrupted. They also will be getting the rights of seasonal access to sacred groves and various regional sites. And at the end of the day, they also have the community forest rights also. That is the right of Gram Sabhas to protect, regenerate, conserve and manage the forest areas. And also they have legal protection against illegal eviction. So these are all the rights that we need to be aware of. I just tried to give you a very brief background before coming to this main article here. Now, what happened recently is the Home Minister of India resolved to convert the Naxalite areas into Naxal Mukt Bharat by March 2026. And carrying this mission forward, the Chhattisgarh Chief Minister has actually mentioned that the government's foremost priority is to ensure that every forest land and say leaseholding and various other peoples get their rightful forest entitlements. Mainly from a Naxalism perspective, we know that Chhattisgarh is a state which has historically combated Naxalism, and 40% of Chhattisgarh is Naxal affected, and mainly the old tactics such as employing the military or the police against these forces have had positive results but not a sustainable one. And that is why the government has actually announced an initiative known as for the Namantran. Now this will be giving simplified inheritance to the people who are actually seeking the land rights after the passing of their previous generations. Also, the legal heirs will not be facing any bureaucratic hurdles or red tapeism, where that is why there have been a lot of instances of corruption, rent seeking by the bureaucrats. And at the end of the day, it will be also enabling the access to various government schemes such as the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, rural, and various other sanitation initiatives and so on as a part of this initiative. Also, this government has introduced the surrender and rehab policy. For the Naxalites who have surrendered, they will definitely be getting land rights and also 10,000 per month stipend up to a particular period, and also skill training to be absorbed in the labor force. Apart from this, for the very first time in recent times, the central government has also been taking initiatives in this Forest Rights Act, because mainly the implementation section is done by the state government. Now the center government is also trying to help by having around 300 plus Forest Rights Act cells or various communication centers. And here, according to the state government's data, according to the various community forest rights, around 4,300 titles to the various communities have been given in the last 1.5 years. And here we have to laud the government that more community titles have been given, and this covers more people rather than individual titles. So that means actually we are seeing a reversal of earlier trends, which can actually have a better economic implication and also better internal security implication for the near future. So this is actually a very excellent case study. Now you let me know in the comments the answer to this 2021 prelims questions. Now we will be moving on to the next one. Guys, here this article is talking about the Genius Act. Now this has nothing to do with you being a genius or I being a genius or making everyone genius. This is actually about the regulation of cryptocurrency landscape in the US, and any policy from the US perspective is extremely important for India also to look into what is happening. Now you know that we have various cryptocurrencies. We have so many kinds of cryptocurrencies around the entire world. But these cryptocurrencies are extremely volatile. There have been so many scams and scandals because they are not regulated by the government. They are regulated by private individuals. Their values can fluctuate like anything. And that is why over a period of time, the financial experts have created something that we know as stable coins. Now these are stable coins which are cryptocurrencies themselves, but we have tried to associated it with a fiat currency. So in this respect, for example, we try to bring this fiat currency such as dollars, rupees or any other safe currency. We try to have the parity of 1:1, that is using, for example, $1 and one cryptocurrency to create one stable coin. For example, we have Tether, we have Circle, we have DAI, we have Binance, we have so many other kinds of stable coins in the entire world which are backed by their respective rupees or dollars or currencies. Apart from this, we can also have commodity backed stable coins which are actually backed by gold, oil, silver, these kind of commodities which are not currencies. Apart from this, we also have algorithmic stable coins which are actually a form of smart contracts which are very risky sometimes because these are based on algorithms or which are actually computer programs. And prominent example of the same is the USD, which collapsed in 2022. And this is why we need to talk about stable coins right now, because when we talk about cryptocurrency, they are very unstable. But when we talk about stable coins, they are at least a little bit of economically viable and stable when we talk about their values, because in the global context, this stablecoin market cap is at $251 billion, and this has seen a rise of 22% from the last year. Also, the US is trying to aim to become the main leader in stablecoin issuance, because as of now, the stablecoins all around the world is actually one of the top holders of the US Treasury bills, because these bills have been actually a part of the various collateral in the stable coins. So now we are in a position to understand the Genius Act. Now this Genius Act is actually one of those acts apart from the Stable Act that the US has framed, or these are still draft acts that the US have framed to actually regulate the stable coins. Firstly, let us understand the difference between the two. The Genius Act is actually passed by the US Senate, which is their form of Rajya Sabha, and the Stable Act is actually passed by the US House of Representatives, which is their form of Lok Sabha. So mainly when we talk about the regulation of stable coins, right, the flexibility of issuer will be the broader base of issuers, but here this broader base will be the banks, the private companies, the various institutions, but under the Stable Act it has been restricted. When we talk about the reserve assets which will be backing the stable coins, that will be US treasuries, the currencies and so on. But here this particular Stable Act is only looking at some safe instruments only. But in the Genius Act there can be some risky assets too. And at the end of the day, when we talk about Mr. Trump, he is mainly supporting the Genius Act because when we talk about his own say portfolio in the stable coins, he has around $320 million in Trump meme coin. I don't know what is this all about, but he has the same, I mean this kind of investments in cryptocurrencies and stable coins also. Next, the US is also trying to spread investments via stablecoin through the family crypto program, where even Pakistan is there. US is actually trying to make it more popular among the BRICS countries. Also, we have to understand that the entire world is talking about de-dollarization, and the US is not liking the same. So the US is instead telling use the stable coins. These are not exactly dollars, but these are backed by dollars. Again, the same message. And the main thing that we have to understand, the US wants its economic supremacy to be locked in via the dollar. That is why the US is actually trying to push the Genius Act, which can produce more stable coins, and that can be used by Pakistan, the BRICS countries and so many other countries, so that the US still reigns supreme. So that is why we need to look at the global implications. See, when we talk about India's dilemma regarding cryptocurrency, that is always there. As of now, these are not recognized as legal tenders. Even stable coins do not have proper issuance in the country because of various RBI's comprehensions. But RBI is also trying to explore the central bank digital currency, the CBDC, the electronic rupee, and maybe its possible integration with the stable coins in the future. But as of now, we do not have the same prominently, because mainly for the emerging countries and the developing economies, we have so many associated risks for using stable coins. Firstly, if we are using stable coins, we lose our monetary sovereignty. We will not be able to use our rupees and manipulate the supply to manipulate stablecoin supply, right? So that is why we have this issue. Secondly, we are exposed to the US bond markets. So whatever risks they will be facing, we will be also facing the same if you actually try to use more stable coins. Next, we also have the cyber risk, as recently Iran also saw the same. When we are trying to use more cryptocurrencies, more stable coins, the cyber security risk is there. But we have the opportunity also, because we can have access to more stable savings, because the US bond market is actually more developed than the developing countries. Also, the dollar access we can get without getting into too much of volatility in the foreign exchange market. And at the end of the day, this can be a potential payment revolution going on. But as of now, let us see what the US legislation is passing. And till then, you solve this question in the comments. Now on to the next one. India is actually set to integrate their rare blood registry with e-Rakt Kosh. Let us understand through the perspective of GS2, mainly the initiatives related to health in the country, where the revolution here is about linking the two portals of e-Rakt Kosh and the Rare Donor Registry of India. Now here, this e-Rakt Kosh is actually locating your nearest blood bank. It will be tracking your donation, and it will be actually be also looking at various availability of blood samples. Now this portal, which is actually under the National Health Mission, has been linked with another portal, another registry, which is a kind of a data repository, which is maintained by the ICMR, NIIH, plus their 4 partnered institutions, where 4,000 plus database donors are screened. Their 300 plus rare blood markers are actually included here in the data. So any person who is searching for blood, mainly from the rare donor groups on the e-Rakt Kosh portal, they can have access to this database, and we can easily try to trace this, because mainly people from Bombay blood group, P null or RH null, who are extremely unfortunate because their blood group is extremely rare. In cases of any issues, they need urgent blood transfusion. That is why this kind of tests, this kind of portals have been extremely important. Beyond this, some other innovations have been done. For example, innovation in hematology, such as tackling hemoglobinopathies, which has been developed by the ICMR NIH, again with the partnership of the same, where we are having point of care test kits for sickle cell anemia and thalassemia. And this kind of test kits have reduced the main testing kit of which was amounting to 350 rupees to under 50 rupees per test. And this technology will also be transferred to other private sectors. Mainly, it has been marketed by Bioscan since August 2023. And finally, we also have advancements in testing for bleeding disorders, where this kind of testing is being developed as a rapid visual card test for hemophilia A and von Willebrand disease. Now this also has been validated by World Federation for Hemophilia, and this is also a kind of an extreme rare disease, and mainly this tests, this kind of visual aids will be also be available at the grassroots level via the primary health centers. And in India, it has to be also be noted that more than 1.4 lakh people live with this particular disease, the second highest after Brazil. That is why these rapid visual card tests will be instrumental for their treatment. Now on to the final article. Guys, as I am speaking right now, the US B-2 bombers, which were moved yesterday to Guam, which is a military base of the US in the Pacific Ocean, just off the coast of Japan, maybe they have been potentially be used to attack 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. And this is a very big kind of a event which has happened, because this is maybe formally bringing the US to the Israel-Iran war. Maybe potentially a large-scale war in the future. And here, that is why the B-2 stealth bombers are extremely important. Sometimes the UPSC actually asks some foreign military technology in the questions. So these are stealth bombers. As you can see, this is the B-2 version. They also have the B-21 version like this, which is a little bit smaller, and a much more smaller Eclipse. So these are stealth technology bombers. They carry various bunker bombs, which are heavy bombs, which can actually drop down from an altitude, and they can actually strike the soil they can go 60 meters, even 200 meters beneath the soil, and they can actually detonate in front of the various nuclear facilities which are mainly located deep underground. So these bombers are fulfilling that kind of technological feat where these are actually known as bunker busters. They can carry up to 13,000 kilograms of bombs. And also when we talk about these long range strikes, they can have this 6,000 plus miles unrefueled. That means they can actually go for 6,000 plus miles without any refueling. So that is where this kind of nuclear sites in Iran were struck with this. And here, if you want to know the location of Guam, it is just located off the coast of Japan. And this map is showing the US military presence around the entire world. So the US military thought that it will be better at Guam and it will be striking Iran in this particular manner. And also when we talk about the countries with the most number of US bases, we have Japan, Germany, South Korea, Guam, Italy, and so on. So Guam is actually within the top 5 places where it is close enough to strike Iran, but outside of Iran's missile striking range. Correct? It can also evade Iranian air defenses. Mainly, they have deployed S-400, S-300 of the Russian capabilities. Mainly, the outcomes right now that US has actually joined the war. Right? Now, mainly we have to fight for this diplomatic peace between these nations, because any kind of miscalculation can lead to an all-out Middle East war, maybe potentially the World War III. God knows what will be happening. And maybe if this is stopping here only, maybe Iran again will be engaging via the proxy war using Hezbollah and various other countries such as Syria, Lebanon to wage war against the Israelis and also against the US forces right now, because after this thing, I don't think so that the Iranian country will be resting in peace. So that is why we have to look forward what happens. But till then, again, you solve this 2018 questions in the comments. Also do not mention all the answers of the analyst's questions, practice questions in the comments. Now, I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.